Welcome to the American Made and Paid Show, the home of free speech and independent thought.
The big story is freedom of speech is really in trouble. The far left knows that at any time they can call for a sponsor boycott of anyone they despise.
It is right here, right now, where you'll get your weekly dose of unfiltered truth.
It's non-negotiable. Pre-existing conditions will be protected. This president has said this as a candidate.
Insight.
Very few people I know could have handled it. We can never, ever let this happen to another president again.
And information that challenges the American way of life.
Welcome, everybody, to the American Made and Paid Show. Hope you guys are all doing well. I'm back again. I'm your host, Zach King. I got Professor Dreg with me as usual. You know, just a couple of things that I want to mention before we jump into today's episode. I know you guys have been emailing me and talking about how you disagree with Professor Dreg and all that, and you agree with them. Some people love him, some people hate him. There's someone I actually sent in an email that was like, oh, well, he's a black conservative. He sounds pretty racist. And talked about reparations. So somebody did send me an email. I definitely got to write him back. He's probably going to listen to this. But thank you for your email, sir. I won't mention you by name, but it's good to know that you disagree accordingly. I'm not apologetic if it sounded racist, because it's not. It's not racist. It's just facts. I mean, these are just things we have to discuss. But with that out of the way, this show is obviously going to be different. It's not going to have the same perspectives that you're going to hear from Turning Point USA or Rush Limbaugh identity politics, because they play that in the right as well. Progressivism exists in the right and the left. It exists amongst Republicans and Democrats alike. Progressivism in itself is an ideology. It's a racist ideology, and it's not something that is exemplified because you're maybe more right-leaning conservative, right? And oftentimes today, conservatism is a very blanket term for, I guess, people in the right. So that's why we do a lot on this show for you guys who are listening to really define what conservatism means. I think we spent a solid first 2 weeks of doing this show just really defining what it means and then the progressive history behind it. So, what Professor Dreg brought up earlier in our shows was, okay, reparations, I get it, because the Italians were paid that, the Japanese were paid that, but no social services, right? It's got to be one of those things. So with that out of the way, I want to talk about this further as it pertains to the black community, and how it's been impacted very, very heavily by crime bills and prison reforms, which we'll jump into. But I do want to remark on a video that you had sent me about self-regulation, self-policing in the Second Amendment, because this actually pertains to the business of prisons. So we can actually tie this in real well. Professor Dreg sent me a video about drug cartels down in Mexico and how they're actually vigilantes in Mexico that actually take up arms and protect their citizens, right, when given the opportunity to do so. So thank you for sending me that video. But what are your thoughts on that? Because I thought that was rather interesting, that this guy was a deported Mexican guy. So he probably had lived in a border state or whatever.
Somewhere in LA or East Palo Alto.
Yeah, East Palo Alto, something like that. Speaks perfect English. Speaks perfect English. Got deported from English. Yeah, but his English was still better than.
Oh no! But he spoke very, very eloquently. But
yeah.
Just
so and that's what was a little bit odd, was that this guy, this Mexican, was a deportee from the United States, and now is a vigilante, almost like a cartel fighter down in Mexico. So, yeah. Context, thoughts behind that, the background. So for our listeners.
Okay. So with that, I mean, Jesus, I really want to address the emails, but yeah, we'll jump into this real quick. So what I like about what this guy did is he literally learned about conservatism from the United States, and he openly admits it. See, because I've always, and this is what people don't get, and this kind of addresses whoever's been emailing you from the street perspective. Because, when you go to a university like Berkeley or San Jose State or name some Stanford,
right?
Santa Cruz, whatever, all the ones in the Bay, you learn about conservatism like, okay, being conservative means you're pro-life and free markets and whatever, things like that. And then if you're the left, you're pro-choice, and you're not a racist, because only you have to be a racist in the right. So if you're a conservative, you're going to be a racist because you support the good old boy network. And if you're from the left, you believe in big government because the government will end racism. So that's what people believe. But I am of the belief, and I'm going to prove it as fact,
right,
that conservatism is just Christianity, but real Christianity that has been lost in translation from when Jesus was born over 2019 years ago till today. So there's a lot of, translations that has been lost through the Bible and everything else. But street conservatism, as we are learned, is basically Christianity in its purest form. And that's how we survive. And even though I'm an atheist, I'm not stupid. And I could honestly see the philosophies taught from Christianity into how we were, how we survived. And that video from CNN, it was a CNN video, which was really bizarre because you would think CNN would be, anti-gun, anti-Christian, but they don't actually know why they just thought it was an interesting thing, but they don't know the subtext behind it. Whereas this is actually a reflection of American values evident in Mexico, because this was a deportee, believes in self-preservation, and was actually defending his own against the cartels. Well, but it goes, okay, but for me, when I see that, there's two things. One, what you said is correct, but the other one is he recognizes now he's a conservative, and he gave all the credit. Literally, they gave all the credit to Jesus, and they quoted a Christian army, and it wasn't even a Christian army. It was because I was doing a little bit of research on the Templar Knights, or the Knights Templar, and basically,
is that Christianity or Freemasonry? Because they're not the same thing.
No. Okay, so this order, the Templar Knights, or the Knights of Templar, this order was started in 1119, and that was for the protection of Christian pilgrims. So, I guess the whole multi-level marketing scheme that Jesus made up. So when you're supposed to go spread the word, they were killing Christians, because, and they needed protection. So like what these guys did in Mexico, it was the same thing. So like an order of, this whole Catholic order came about, we're going to protect the priests who spread the word of Christ. And that's how they came about. So CNN, without knowing, they were totally supporting street conservatism without knowing, because that's what happens on the streets. The people took up arms. They got rid of all the drug lords because the government couldn't do it. They couldn't trust the government. So they did it themselves. And they totally admitted that, hey, look, we're doing it the same way the Knights Templar, in that vein. And, and they said when the threat is gone, they'll put away their arms. And I've always said that, because in the streets, that's what happens. When there's peace, they'll put everything away. But until then, they'll keep fighting. And unfortunately, in the States, we're never going to have that, because I honestly don't believe we have real conservatives in this country. We just don't. We have no conservative leaders. Nobody knows how to be charitable. Everybody's they're looking for war. But like a real conservative, they don't look for war. They avoid it. But then they're strong, like those dudes in Mexico. You know what? Did they kill anybody? I don't think so. I think they just got rid of them. They came up with their arms and they stormed the house, and the dude just ran away. The guy's still alive. The drug lord, he's still alive, but
they chased him out, and
they chased him out, and they used strength. And we literally talked about that either yesterday or the day before, about the United States doesn't have to go looking for war. And then it's just my belief about turning the other cheek. You let somebody punch you, and then you take their best hit, and then you let them hit you again, and I guarantee you they won't do it, because they saw how you took the first hit.
Mm-hmm.
And if they hit you again and you still take it and it means nothing, they will not fight you again because they know that you're stronger than them. And I think that's what, I mean, I don't know because I haven't read the Bible, but but just being a smart person, I think that's what Jesus meant, because I honestly believe that killing is wrong. And it kind of ties into what we're going to talk about later about.
I actually wanted to bring that up, right? Because this is a good way to bridge the gap here. You said war is bad. Fighting is bad, right?
It's
part of the crime bill. When I look at the 1994 crime bill that was introduced, the whole infamous 3 strikes mandatory for repeat offenders and all that kind of stuff. None of that is actually, if you think about it, corrective action, the way it was demonstrated here in Mexico with this guy, because the drug lord ran out. Like, you know what I mean? So that is a degree of not just self-preservation, but it's a form of discipline, almost like corrective action. So clearly that's like, okay, well, you don't want this to happen, so this was a response to it. But this is the interesting thing, because when we tie this to prisons, right, the industry of a prison, we have to remember that this crime bill, in its weird way, was either negligence or a war upon our own citizens, our own communities. Because if you think about it, right, just look at the data. They increased the percentage of convicted violent offenders as opposed to corrective action, and increased the percentage of the sentence that they actually serve. It is like a war on your own citizens, because in just the last decade, from the 90s to the 2000s, prison population doubled, like went from like a couple million to like doubled that number, higher than it had been in the past 50 years.
And that's throughout the entire country, doubled.
Yeah.
So in progressive cities, it most likely tripled, because in some cities, I bet you money, the more conservative cities.
Well, they got their vigilantes. They take care of their own type of local state government. Yeah.
But anyway, but then it goes back to, what did Simone Sanders say about
this? She deflected. She didn't know. She's like, well, it was an overstatement. Like a CNN person. And this is funny because it's CNN. It wasn't Fox News. Questioners like, so, because we talked about this 2 weeks ago. Joe Biden hired Simone Sanders as his senior advisor here, or campaign manager, whatever. But I know she's in a prominent position within his committee. And she was challenged with that on CNN, where it was just like, hey, Simone, you're supporting a presidential candidate. It's like you went to work for one white man, one white supremacist, to another white supremacist. And the truth in the 1994 bill is that, okay, well, before I get into that, I want to make it clear that this bill did not increase crime. We got to make that distinction here. Where it's like, it didn't increase crime. It just increased the amount of convicted for stupid stuff. Say you got caught.
Incentivizes sending people to prison.
Exactly. So like when people say, well, it increased crime, no, that's not true. But what it did was it incentivized cops and law enforcement to go after people for either if you were a first-time offender or for something that was just a slap on the wrist type stuff. So the truth is, the percentage of convicted offenders, right, went up, and the prison time was also effectively lengthened, right? And like, for stupid things too, whereas like this wasn't the case in the past, but even if you like missed a payment or whatever, they could get you for some stupid stuff. They would do it. So she was not able to deflect. She didn't really know enough to be, she just said, well,
It's crazy. This is when, after 94, this is when they started making it a felony in California to miss child support payments.
I've heard about that.
You could honestly be third striked in California and spend the rest of your life in prison for not paying child support.
And here's the problem, and I don't know if this is unique to Canada because it's screwed up in Canada, but in the United States, I don't know if this is true. If you miss those child support payments, right, you get put into prison, but you still have to make those child support payments even though you're not working.
No, it's in California too. No,
that's screwed up. That's messed up.
Because those payments never stop.
And right, and there are some fathers that are like, how can I make money if I'm behind bars, if I'm in jail? So it's not about just like you got to make payments because the lifestyle of the child has to match from when you got separated from your wife or divorced or whatnot. But now that you're in prison, they don't even take into consideration that like that's why. Okay, so that's a whole nother thing we got to talk about, where the family and court system is messed
Well,
up.
that's called arrears. And that's
Well-
the whole point. Okay, so what you're describing is what they're called, is what they call arrears. So when you're in prison for like 2 years, and let's say you're, just to make the math easy, if you owe $100, well, let's say $1,000, because that's more like in the Bay Area, the average child support for one kid in Santa Clara County, Alameda County, San Mateo County, San Francisco County, Marin County, all of the counties, Contra Costa County, whatever, all of the counties in the Bay Area, the average payment for child support is $1,500. So we'll make the math easy and just say $1,000. So if you go to prison, but they stopped that now because, with Trump, thank goodness he was president, they released all the nonviolent felons.
Offender. Well, First Step Act, right?
Yeah.
Which I think I don't know. I've heard different viewpoints. I'm for it, but I'm also not 100% for it, because it would let out also people who push drugs.
Yeah, but see, again, I'm not against it, like, because I know people, dude, I can't believe you're like pro crime. It's like, because look, when people do drugs, that has nothing to do with the drug pusher. It has everything to do, like, that's self-responsibility. If you're stupid enough to do drugs, then you deserve it. Don't punish the guy selling it. Punish the guy doing it.
But distributing drugs.
Yeah, because it's
a more serious conviction than just getting caught
because
with
the users are the ones that are making the demand, not the dealers.
It's funny because the dealers are selling it to people and they're not getting high.
Because they're smart, dude. That's me. I would sell shit, like, even to this day, I will sell liquor. I don't drink liquor. You know what I mean? But that's all right. I mean, it's, because I'm a successful business person. Everybody knows. Like, that's why I would make a very good drug dealer, because I don't do drugs. But I'll always have my wits on me, and I could always, because here's the thing: if a car dealer can rip off a stupid person because think about this: how come when you buy like a, I don't know, Toyota Camry, one person can get it from a dealer for like 18 grand, and then somebody else will pay for the exact same car and spend 30,000? How is that any different from a drug dealer? Because if some dude is stupid, I'm going to sell that cocaine or crack or meth at a higher rate than somebody who's like, hey man, like, I'm only going to buy it at this price. It makes no sense how they criminalize dealers. It makes no sense. The people that should be going to prison are the ones that are growing and kill other people, for competition to make it a monopoly or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I see that, but let's go back to your point about the child support payments being $1,000, because I want you to wrap up.
Okay, let me. Thanks for ringing me back in. But anyway,
gotta make sure, because that was interesting.
Because people don't understand what free markets really are. Like, they're gonna punish drug dealers? Come on. But anyway, and you guys believe in free markets? Bullshit. But anyway, so let's go back to child support. If you're paying $1,000 a month, which is very cheap in the Bay Area, you owe $12,000 a year. And if you're in prison for 2 years, that equals $24,000. Simple math. 1,000 times 24 is 24,000. So so instead of eliminating it, knowing that the father couldn't pay it, now you are in debt to the county for $24,000. And the county will put a 10% interest rate per month, not a year, a monthly interest of
you're gonna pay
10%.
You're gonna pay an additional about $1,200.
Well, no, because it's 10% on 24,000.
Yeah,
a month. So 10% of 24,000 is 2,400. So you know what I mean. So that's your interest payment. So not only do you have the 24,000, then it's increased by $3,400 every month from interest and current child support, on top of that big old giant bill of 24 grand that you didn't pay. So in theory, this guy's looking at, because come on, you're gonna have to pay $3,500 just about for one kid. what kind of job are you going to have that honestly where you could pay that off? You can't do it. It's an impossibility. So,
And that's per child, right?
Yeah, that's per kid.
Oh,
So,
man.
Now imagine increasing that bill by 50% because it's $1,500 a month is average. But then now they're trying to make it a little bit better based.
Yeah, but that's why historically, right? Like this, before we get back into prison stuff, one thing I want to talk about is men's rights also on this show, because here's the deal. People think that like in divorces, right, men kill themselves. It's part of death culture, but men kill themselves because they're heartbroken over losing their kids, custody battles. That's part of it. It's not that. They get screwed by the system, as in their child's, like, I know men who have been effectively bankrupted just with a divorce. It's not even in the divorce itself with the lawyers and all that, because that's extremely expensive. I mean, a divorce lawyer easily could cost you $100,000 a month because of just all the stuff you got to deal with, depending on your assets, whatnot. So they're, on top of that, they're also mandated to pay alimony and child support payments for each child.
Yeah.
You know? So, and it's like, what job do you have, really? Say you don't make the payments, you get thrown in jail, right? Like, what job could you possibly get to really no, I'm serious. Men have like,
No,
did you know the suicide rate is 10 times higher when men are going through a divorce? It's just like, that's not a coincidence here. You're getting screwed.
Yeah, well, okay, so let me say this really quick. Okay, so on average, a divorce attorney, just for regular people, is going to run you like, it's a $5,000 retainer fee, and then on top of that, you'll probably end up spending like an extra $10,000-15,000. But when you said $100,000, I automatically remembered this dude from Hollywood. He runs a very famous magazine that they use in a very famous movie with very famous actresses like Anne Hathaway and whatever. Anyway,
it's so famous, why don't you name any names?
No, well, I just already said it's a movie that Anne Hathaway was in when it talked about some sort of magazine. So that CEO, right, of that magazine, I swear to God, the judge stopped him from building on his mansion, and even though the wife was in prison and was an unfit mother, the judge ordered him to stop building on his mansion, and he had to pay the $12,000 a month in child support or whatever. And like per kid, and there was 2 kids.
Oh,
so,
man.
You know, so he had to do all of that stuff. And
wait, $12,000 a month per kid?
Yeah, but he was paying it to the state, not to the wife, because the wife was in prison for drugs. And anyway, so long story short, I mean, I don't have all the details. I'm just going off the top of my head. So, you know, forgive me if I'm wrong. I doubt if he'll sue me, but because he can't.
He didn't name any names, though, so it's whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, but then, like, if anybody knows, like, movies, they'll figure it out. Because, you know, whatever. But either way, so that dude, oh, man. And here's the thing. The judge was like, I can't even imagine how you don't want custody of your kids. Well, maybe that, but because that's how the judge took it. When the judge, you know, because he was trying to be all like, you know, like he was a feminist male. So this feminist male.
I've talked about these guys. They
Exactly. So because of that, because of his simping ways.
Simping, yeah. I was gonna just say.
The judge threw the book on him and said, "Look, if you build anything on your house, then you're going to jail." And yeah, so he had to stop building on his house. He's still paying $25,000 to the courts because they took custody of the kids, and because like literally. This is how like men don't because this actually just reminds me of a men's rights story. So a lot of these men don't know about their rights, and they give away their rights because they're feminists. So a judge was literally trying to help this man, but the guy didn't want his rights. So the judge goes, well, I'll send you to prison then. And you're still going to have to pay the child support, but you're going to pay it to the court since we're taking your kids. But anyway, that was a weird tangent, but I'm telling you, we really have to get into men's rights because men don't even know they have rights because they're all feminists, they're all simps, And oh, you have no idea how important, because even the richest dudes don't even know about men's rights.
Well, when Jeff Bezos will split from his wife and pay her $60 billion, I mean.
But then again, he kept 70%. She took 30.
Oh.
That's how rich he was. You know what I mean? It's like,
it,
so that's like 60 billion. He still has like 2 something. He's super rich. You know what I mean? Because
not to mention, he could probably make that stuff back within 5 years, knowing how Amazon's doing, tariffs and all that.
Jesus. I don't know, like, because here's the problem with Amazon is Walmart is doing everything better. And because Walmart is growing and, you know, Jeff Bezos is really up, you know, because here's the thing. If Jeff Bezos loses favor with the liberals, there's no way he's going to make that in 5 years. It'll take him like 20 to get 60 billion back. Seriously, because Walmart already knows how to compete in a world with a bunch of liberals.
And don't, yeah, of course. And we have to also mention that, because don't you think that the speculative prices of the stocks is also depending on people's public approval of the company?
Exactly.
Well?
It's based on public opinion.
Yeah. So it's like you like the company, you like it, so obviously the stock's going to be valued a certain way. Imagine if like some stupid, not scandal, because scandals are everywhere, but something really crippling brought down Amazon, like, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, it could tank overnight. Like, we're talking 50%, like, or more,
and
just based on public approval. So,
well, no, but with people like AOC, you know, who the media loves, the media can destroy Amazon, because Amazon can't compete in a world where the media hates you.
That's what happened to Uber. Remember that? With, racism. Yeah.
Not just with that, but sexism with the rapes and all this, like,
and Lyft,
Uber.
And now Lyft is, well, Uber doesn't dominate the market anymore. It's
not in the Bay Area. More people use Lyft than Uber in the Bay.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes.
They got boycotted hard.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And that will spread throughout like in liberal areas, which are the major cities where Uber really depends on it, because Uber used to be 100% domination on the market. Lyft came and they maybe had like 5%, which is still big. But now Lyft is about 35-40% of the market share, which is a huge loss for Uber. That's a huge loss. So, you know, that's significant. And like losing 35% based on media perception, that's a huge loss. And if Amazon lost 35% of their market share because of the media, he's not going to get that 60 billion back, or he will, but in a very, very long time. So media perception, the use of language in the marketplace, is real significant that people have to really wake up to.
I think Amazon dominates right now, right, because of their innovation when it comes to not only Prime delivery, but their online platform, right? They allow for resellers. Really, because 70% of people on Amazon who are selling stuff, that's actually like people like you and me. You know, you can start an Amazon business. You can actually source your products overseas from like Alibaba from China and sell it. Like Amazon FBA is a big thing. 70% of resellers are on Amazon. If Walmart, right, and Walmart's got storefronts and employees, right? We're talking stores. If Walmart did something similar, could compete at those prices, and also gave people the ability to start their own businesses on Walmart at those competitive prices, then Amazon wouldn't be able to compete. Amazon stays ahead of the curve.
Walmart does have programs like that, but the problem is Walmart doesn't push it hard enough. But you got to remember something too. Walmart, with Walmart Online and their storefronts and everything else, they still do 5 times more gross revenue, like sales, than Apple and all the top 5 companies combined. You got to remember that. Walmart does 5 times more gross sales than the top 5 companies on the, you know, like the Forbes 500.
Yeah.
So there's Walmart, and they do more than number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 combined in gross sales, including Apple, including, you know. But the thing is, you're correct with your assessment that even though they do more in sales, the profit margin, I mean, you know, like who has more cash on hand? Well, Apple. Why? Because Apple doesn't pay employees. Apple pays their people in China nothing.
And their brand is extremely valuable. There's a valuation behind the Apple brand.
Yeah, well, but just cash on hand. But here's the thing. Okay, so the operations of Apple is way more like extremely, because I don't want to say just way more. It's an extreme difference from how much, because think about this.
Well, because you're talking about operating costs here, right?
Yeah.
For all of their businesses and stores and all that.
Think about this. Apple pays $0 in workers' comp insurance in China. No, but it's the truth. How much money does Apple actually spend in workers' compensation? Zero when they have all their manufacturing in China. But how much does Walmart have to spend? In California, it's like, seriously, Walmart will spend hundreds of millions of dollars in just workers' comp alone throughout the country. Why? Because it's just what they do. And they play by the American rules. They play by all this stuff, but they could afford it because they make 5 times more than they literally, like, man, like, it's amazing to see how much Walmart actually sells. But anyway, but because they spread the wealth, you know, they're not that, they're profitable because shit, their shares are still worth like $70. You know what I mean? Per share. That's significant. That's a lot of money. And that's way better than AT&T, you know? So Walmart's doing pretty well. And, but, you know, Amazon would love to do what Walmart's doing, but they can't because everything, like, you know,
well, the business model's different too.
Yeah, but then the thing is too, they don't have the law, because look, everybody hates Walmart. The media perception on Walmart is horrible. Everybody hates Walmart. It's just like this thing. Walmart shoppers are all like hillbillies. You know,
I mean, I gotta say, you watch some of those videos of just the ghetto fights that happen in Walmart over stupid, trivial things that are on clearance. It gives it a bad rep.
Well, no, but even the guys that did the coup, because we are in the middle, or now it's the end, but we are at the end, the closing moments of a failed coup against the United States president. And even the people architecting the coup made comments about, I can smell the Walmart employees on Trump. That's what literally they said that. That was one of their quotes. I can smell the Walmart shoppers or whatever he said on Trump. I can smell it. And but that's the thing. It's like, you know, so everybody has a bad image on Walmart, but the people who shop at Walmart, like myself, dude, we are fiercely loyal to Walmart. Why? Because it's the cheap, like, you could buy a box of Frosted Flakes, a big giant box.
For like 79 cents or something?
Well, no, not that cheap. It's literally, you can buy the 24-ounce box of Frosted Flakes at Walmart for like, it's $3.50, right? And but you could buy the same box of cereal at Safeway or...
Safeway is expensive. Trader Joe's is cheaper than Safeway. Safeway is not cheap.
Well, Trader Joe's is no. Who's owned by Amazon bought that. Whole Foods. Yeah, Whole Foods is supposed, but Whole Foods is okay.
Whole Foods is not cheap. When I was living in the Bay Area, I knew this girl who bought toilet paper from Whole Foods. You're dumb. It's what you wipe your butt with, and you're gonna buy it at Whole Foods where it's $12. Like, are you serious?
Insane. No, but okay, but this is at Walmart. It's $3.50. Any other store in the Bay, because I don't know what the price is. It's not like $6. It's almost $7. It was like $6.99, and I'm thinking, how is this even humanly possible? You know what I mean? It's not like Safeway employees make that much more than Walmart employees. It's comparable. You know, like when you go to Target, like, because I don't go to Target because it's a nickel more. So it's like it's $3.50 at Walmart. It'll be $3.55 at Target. And their employees make the exact same money. In fact,
but see, here's the thing, though. I remember this, and we got to get back to prison reform, but we got to talk about this too. With Target, it's like I have to say this. I've worked at Safeway. I worked at a Safeway for 13 months, so I can speak on experience. You got your Walmart employees, and this is just Bay Area perception of stuff. Walmart is just low, right? We're talking trailer park. That's the impression that people get. It's not because it's true, but trailer park, hillbilly, just people who like, because that's just how it is.
That's true.
And in Safeways, you'd have all your minorities, like who are working in. You have black people, Hispanic people, Asians, lots of Asians at a Safeway, and then Target is where, because everybody's getting paid the same, is where you'd find all your white folks. You know what I mean? It's just
that's what we call it, Target.
Is that really
it's Target.
And everybody makes those analogies, right? They always say, well, you got your Walmart type people, you got your Safeways, and then you got your Targets, and then you got your Whole Fooders, which are all the hippies that have for some reason seem to have a lot of money, even though they were wearing like 79-cent thrift store pants that got paint on them.
No, it's insane. Cigarette stains, cigarette burns in their clothes.
Yeah,
moth holes. You can see the moth holes from their.
It's like, oh yeah, well I support 100%, compostable free food stuff, and it's just like you spend a premium just buying that. So just go to a Walmart, but they got too much pride, so they go to Whole Foods. But anyways, that's just what my impression of it. But we gotta talk a little bit more about that, the business behind that. But what were you saying about, because I got to take it back to prisons. Like prisons are a business.
But I want, because I actually, let me share this quick story about Safeway. No, like when I was a kid, I was literally like 18, because my boy, he was like, because when I was a kid, all my friends were like about 3 to 4 years older than me. So I had my boy, he was a butcher at Safeway. So he goes, dude, they're hiring for cashiers. Why don't you go and apply for a cashier job? So I went, 18 years old, me and my friend, I guess I won't say her name, but either way, so we both go there. So when you go to the Safeway and you go apply, you take a math test, and then you do this like puzzle test to see how you bag groceries.
Yeah.
So either way, I got a perfect score on everything, right? And then either way, so my friend, she was second. She was literally ranked second, a pretty little white girl. And me being like a moderately decent, okay, well, I guess ugly black dude, right? But either way, so because I was number one, you would think I would have my pick and where I wanted to work. And because I already knew where I wanted to work. I didn't want to work in the ghetto. I wanted to work like in a fancy spot of town. But they gave the job, they gave a cashier job, which was like at the time $14 an hour, which is good. That, because minimum wage back then was like $5. So cashier starting pay 14 is really good.
$14 an hour is amazing. What are you talking about? That's
Yeah, when you consider, because see, in the old days, like my boy was making $50 as a butcher. See, that was in the old days, like when the unions would negotiate this and that, blah, 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 and Safeway they had more money, but now it's, it's a wreck. But anyway, so long story short, I was offered not the cashier position. I was offered a deli manager position at $8 an hour because they wanted me to work in the ghetto where the blacks and the Asians, like where the Safeway, where the minorities went.
I think that's also what gives me a little bit of my, not ghetto, but kind of perspective, because I worked in a Safeway and it was a ghetto Safeway. Like,
dude, but I didn't take the job because I was like, hey man, I got the highest score and I qualified to be a cashier. There's cashier openings in a place called Stevens Creek and like all the white neighborhoods. I said, how come I can't work there? I said, because I deserve that. Things. Well, if you just work at the deli, you move up, to probably take a couple years. Like, yeah, but Jody, my friend, I said, she got offered one in Los Altos and she lives further away than me. Because they were giving me all these excuses like, oh, well, it's so far for you and da-da-da. I said, yeah, but Jody, and I kept saying, Jody, Jody, Jody. Why? Because Jody lived further away from me. But the only difference was she was white. So they put her at the white Safeway.
Is that racism? Are you crying racism?
Yeah, it's racism. That's what racism is. But did I complain? No, I just didn't take the job. I'm like, F you guys. I don't need this bullshit. So I didn't work at Safeway because dude, I got the highest score. And by a lot, like Jody missed, I think she missed about 3, which is good. I mean, there was like a boatload of questions. There must have been like 70, 80. So that's good. You missed 3. That's still an A. So you know what I mean? Or yeah, I guess it's an A, but or a B plus. Either way, I got a perfect score. And I did the puzzles faster than anybody, you know, but they didn't offer it to me. So all the cashier positions went to these hillbilly looking like, you know, because like everybody else, like, you know, because like I was done like maybe 15, 20 minutes ahead of Jody. And then Jody finished second and she got the second highest score. And then so we must have waited around for 45 minutes and them hillbillies were still taking the test and they're telling us how they took it 3 or 4 times. I'm like, really? You know what? I'm thinking, what? But either way, so yeah, I really thought I was going to work at Safeway, but after that race is bullshit. Nah. But see, that's what racism is. Like, you know, hiring because of race and instead of qualifications. And that's the thing, that's the negative aspect of affirmative action. I could have got a job, I should have got a job, but because of affirmative action, they didn't have to put me in the white neighborhoods because they still offered me a job that was above minimum wage, but still below my abilities. And they could legally do that. So, and plus I was only 18, so, you know, I didn't know how to fight back. But either way, going back to prison reforms and all this other stuff, this incentivizes. So, you know, technically what we described about how they group all of these, you know, people together based on racial, ethnic background versus ability, that's what starts crimes. Seriously, because think about it. If you got people who are not, you know, a homogeneous group, because if you split people up based on ability, that group is going to be homogeneous regardless of where they come from because their abilities are the same. But if you just throw everybody in there based on economic situations or whatever, or because of their ethnic background, like, you know, I'm not saying you had trouble with black people, but come on, when you throw like Chinese people with a whole bunch of black guys, their experiences are totally different. Of course, they're going to be fighting because, you know, you just don't throw groups in together just because they have to be homogenous. You know, like if everybody loved Jesus, what's happening today? If everybody loved Wu-Tang Clan, then yeah, they got something to talk about, both Chinese, black, or white. I mean,
here's the thing though, like living in the Bay Area, I know we're getting away from our topic, but that's okay. When it came to like Asian and black relations, or actually I think more, because you talked about feminist men, right, with men's rights. White liberals, feminist men, like will cater to and always like talk about Black Lives Matter and black rights. You know, we got to make sure we help. But they actually don't have any black friends whatsoever. Not that is a giving indicator, but these white liberals are taught to, like, they understand appropriation in the black community because of their education in university, not because they've actually worked with people in the black communities. And this is like a very surface level conservative talking point, but my white liberal friends, so-called in the Bay Area, right, would always talk about like, oh, we need social justice, we need awareness for the black community. It's like not a single one of you actually went and talked to these black people and asked them like, hey, do you really care about, you know, the whole like racism aspect? You're like, nah, like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, but it's way grosser than that.
And I think that's why even 6 years, or like when I was 17, first working at a Safeway, I kind of knew like, oh, it's not all that. Like, these people are teaching us that all white people are racist and everything. And then back in the Safeway, you see people of all races hanging out together. Like,
yeah, no, but here's the funny thing. As long as those white people get the attaboy, like the pat on the back from a black guy, goes,
oh, good on you.
Yeah, like
they want what they want is street cred. They want that street cred. They want that fist bump is what they're looking for. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
But that doesn't make you their friend. They're just telling you that just to shut you up. You know, but it doesn't mean they believe in it. And
okay, so I'll tell you this. This is how I knew I gotta say this, 'cause this is how I knew I was a little bit more ghetto than some of these so-called, even like these white liberals, right? Who you grew up in an affluent neighborhood. You grew up in Piedmont. Okay, Piedmont's the richest neighborhood in the Bay Area. You grew up in Piedmont. You went to like all white schools and everything, but you love hip hop. You're liberal. You know, you like street culture. You wear street clothes. You wear Kanye's like type stuff. This is the funny thing. I remember they were talking to some black people, right? And they're trying to be cool and all that, the hip hop. They're white liberals, so they're trying to get that pat on the back. I swear, and you're going to get a real kick out of this story. One of the black guys said, "Oh, yeah, we're going to hang out. We're going to chop it up." And that's a ghetto term, but I knew what that meant. They didn't. Chop it up means chop up the weed and smoke pot, right? That's what it means. And they had no idea what that meant. It was like, "Oh yeah, we're totally gonna chop it up." Like, what do you mean chop it? Like, you know what I mean? And it was just a really funny interaction. But you wouldn't know that unless you actually spend some time around these people. Not because you want to be ghetto, but you would talk to them longer.
Yeah, you learned the vernacular.
I learned it. I learned it just by being around genuine people. That I was like, all right, no, because I work with you guys. That's just how you talk. And then that's what they told me. It's like, no, chop it up means chop up the weed. Like that. Yeah. That is a very specific to black people, Bay Area term for if we're going to go smoke some marijuana, we're going to chop it up, chop up the weed. And these white progressives are just like losing it, like all street and everything. I'm like, you guys are idiots. And they're just like, they know how dumb you are.
No, but that's what makes it. Oh, like I could tell you a story about Piedmont. I'll say it like this. The Piedmont is so rich that the director of Kaiser, like the head person, the CEO of
Kaiser building right on Broadway in Piedmont where it meets.
Well, they live in one of those mansions.
I believe that.
I could tell you, no, but you know what's funny too, because her husband was the director of, I think he was the director of psychology for the prisons or the county jail or something like that. So, you know, big shot, you know, person. So, you know, it's all the shot callers and the big boys. They all live in Piedmont with those big giant mansions. It's like, but it's actually beautiful when you go up there. You can see San Francisco. You can see the Bay.
You're thinking of like the Montclair Piedmont neighborhood, right? Like just.
No, I don't even know the name of it. I thought it was all Piedmont where those mansions are at. Because like I got real because I actually knew like they actually called me there to work with their son.
Well, it's up in the hills, right? Anything up in the hills is gonna be.
Yeah, so I didn't say any names because there's a lot of directors at Kaiser. But anyway, so this dude honestly thought he was he thought he was black. So I remember the mother was like, "Hey, you know, bring in Drake and try to snap him out of it." Because I still look ghetto. When I used to work at the hospitals, I looked very ghetto. I refused to wear because everybody used to have to wear white uniforms. I mean, I'm thinking, God, are you that old? Yeah, in the old days, everybody had to wear white. I refused to wear white because I thought it made me look like a monkey. I was like, I ain't wearing that. Like, you know, like one of them fucking monkeys when they do the musical and the guys, you know, the monkey goes looking around for money when that dude's playing that instrument. I was like, yeah, so I was hella ghetto. But either way, I remember that kid and God, he honestly thought, I honestly don't know what's wrong with him. But other than maybe he had to go to school in Oakland. Because in those days, Piedmont was actually unincorporated. So it was its own city, but it didn't have a mayor. It didn't have police. It just had a sheriff.
It was kind of like this is Piedmont, you know, but it's not like the city of Piedmont.
They still had to go to Oakland schools. You know what I mean? So I don't know, because somebody goes, no, Piedmont's its own city now. I'm like, really? I don't know. Like, I really don't care because I haven't been to Piedmont in over 20 years. But either way, so when you said Piedmont, I was like, oh, God, like, I'll never forget Piedmont.
I lived on Piedmont Ave for like 4 or 5 years. I lived in the cheapest, most ghetto apartment on Piedmont Ave, right next to Fenton's Creamery. I'm sure you know where that is. Like, that's...
No, but I think that's Oakland. No, but like...
No, you're right. You're right. Piedmont Ave is Oakland. But Oakland Ave, a certain point of it is Piedmont. That's the funny part about it. Oakland Ave.
Really? See, I don't know, like, because I thought Piedmont was the mountains, like the hills.
Yeah, it is. It is, but it's Piedmont, you have to understand, is a very isolated little. It's enclosed, so Piedmont can't really expand because it's landlocked. It's landlocked inside Oakland. Piedmont is like this little triangle that's a specific zip code in Oakland, but it's like really, really rich people. It's very exclusive,
and that's why they're unincorporated. Because seriously, and because they have the money to see, they have the money to do that, and that's. It really gets into sovereignty. Like this, Piedmont is an example of sovereign people. And this 94 crime bill is an example of people who just love to be in prison. And that's just like, that's why I like that term prison planet. But it's the truth. Like, man, I love that phrase. But that crime bill is exactly what Prison Planet is all about. They want the entire world in a prison. But then people like Piedmont, they pretend to be this whole social justice warrior thing, and they're the ones masterminding. Because think about it. I don't know if she's still with Kaiser. I doubt it. But because of her age, she's probably been aged out. But Kaiser is behind a lot of this false information, using language to get people in a mentality where the government is good. Big insurance is good. Like they make you believe all of these things, like come see the doctor for preventative health. You know what I mean? It's like, why would you go see a doctor to prevent anything? Just live diet, exercise, normal stuff, like, basic knowledge will tell you, this and that. And you barely go to the doctors. You don't need to go to the doctors when you're young because you're healthy. For the most part, the majority of people are healthy. But people like in Piedmont, they get into the mentality where, we all need health insurance. We all need the police to do this and do that. And guess what? We're all victims. Let's punish the people making money, whether it's your local drug pusher or Walmart or whoever. Everybody making money needs to be punished.
Right.
And because of that, everybody bought into that 94 Bill's right. Clinton signed it.
I think, you're right about that, because it comes down to the language and the false information that we need a crime bill that basically just extends already existing penalties and will damage people who honestly probably all they needed was a slap on the wrist. It put more people away in prison, but it didn't mean that there was... See, here's the thing I just want to make clear for everybody with the false information. It's not like more crime was occurring as the 90s went on. Crime stayed relatively the same. If anything, it probably went down a little bit, but more people were being locked up.
Yeah, so people, but here's the thing, because crime didn't go down. It stayed the same, because like people don't realize this, but when they do the murder rate, it's done by like 1 for every 100,000.
Yeah, of course.
So it's been relatively low. Even in Chicago, it's relatively low.
Even with black on black killings?
Yeah, it's about 5 for every 100,000.
But it's higher in Chicago.
Yeah, because everywhere else it's like 0 or 0.5 for every 100,000. So, but in the old days, believe it or not, the death rate used to be like 250 for every 100,000.
That's high.
Yeah, no, that's that's 5 to 250. That's like high. It doesn't explain. It was vastly higher back in those wild West days. But, most of that was probably domestic violence. It wasn't like, because,
Well, on the flip side, you also could be vigilant on your own in the old days. You see what I mean?
No, but honestly, it was mostly domestic violence. No, seriously, because it wasn't like, people robbing each other. It was, because a guy got drunk, beat his wife, but beat her to death. And, but that was a legitimate thing that happened in the West. And people don't talk about, like, feminists, they don't know crap. they're gonna. I said, do you guys used to know what happened in the old days? The women used to get beat to. I mean, but again, when you think about it, I know because people say, "Dude, are you kidding me?"
Well, what about mortality too? I mean, like,
well, yeah, everybody died like when they were 50, but 40, 50, you're dead. You're old at 40, old at 50. No, but think because like when you look at the numbers, 250 people dying and 100,000, that's a small number.
right.
But and even now, 5 people dying for every 100,000, that's a small number. But 245 women getting beat to death by their husband, that's a significant difference than today. So when feminists say all these things about, oh, hey, this and that, dude, are you kidding me? Do you know what used to happen in the old days? They used to just beat their women to death. A lot of them, if they were religious, they'd do a King George and beat the woman to death. She'd be dead and do it to remarry, because that was a thing. That was a legitimate thing. So, it's yeah, we totally went off topic, but
Well, I know there's a way we can tie this back, right? Just for the show's sake, and it's just to talk about what people need to understand with Joe Biden, Simone Sanders, right? These are just examples of like people who are advocating for making sure that we're putting these people in power and all that, but understand that like it's not because they're making your country any safer with enforcement when it comes to the laws. This is all about making money. Prison is a business. Prison is like
it's true.
They spend so much money on prisons, and I'm not for the death penalty. I know I'm not, but I'm not also not 100% for no prisons whatsoever. I know you're not for any prisons, but I do think that we need to have some incarceration centers. But at the rate, like when
they're called county jails. We should have county jails. Nobody should ever do more than a year, just like in a county jail.
Well, what if somebody is like a freaking serial killer, rapist guy who?
Yeah, then in that case, honest to.
Like, I'm not talking about burglaries here, like non-lethal burglaries. I'm talking about like you're a freaking danger to society. You'll go killing 20 people.
Here's the thing, and I'm a big believer of this. I honestly believe that if you kill somebody in self-defense, then that's okay. That is acceptable. That's the only form of violence I could honestly support. And that's what I think. I believe you allow, and I hate to say vigilante justice, but this is what I believe. I believe you allow the father or whoever to do what he needs to do. You know what I mean? To protect his family or do whatever, and just give him that shot, because calling the cops and holding somebody down, that goes against human nature, because you should be allowed to defend yourself. And this guy happens to die, then, or you kill the dude. I don't know. I just feel like that. I think that's a forgivable sin. You know what I mean? I because come on, you're going to molest his kid or whatever, but I don't know enough about Christianity to honestly make that a assessment. But I do know violence and killing is wrong, and that's what you make. I mean, literally, that's what prison is. Prison is a place where you teach like good people how to become killers. And that's what prison is. And that's why that is not a good place for correctional rehabilitation. Maybe you could, instead of a prison, you could put a guy like that. I mean, this is the truth. Because there's a place called Coalinga, and that's for sexually violent predators. So people like that, child molesters, you put them in a place like Coalinga, and then that's okay, because in theory, they're away from society, they're alive. But just the ghetto in me, like, dude, if I saw someone like that, I probably have the strength to do it even now. I'd probably hit him so hard, he'd probably die from his wounds anyway. You know what I mean? But it wasn't with the intent to kill him. But you know what I mean? Because, dude, there's something about, and I can't explain it, but, dude, there's certain things you just don't do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, so you get angry, but at the same time, I know it's wrong. Like, you can't just kill somebody. You know what I mean? But if you hit somebody so hard that they die from their injuries, no, because I remember like this one dude, and he knows this, and we were just messing around. It wasn't like a real fight. And it's one of them smoker fights or whatever that they have. And, I just did a little kick, half strength. And that dude went down for like a good 45 minutes. And he couldn't, because they said I hit him either in the kidney or the liver. And it was like the perfect shot. And yeah, he just went down. And they said he could have died from that. And was that intentional? No, that would have been an accident. But was that murder? Was that killing? No, I mean, I don't know. That's the whole point. But then it goes back to what, in my mind, what Jesus says about thought crimes or an intent, so, like if you lust for somebody, like my carnal mind in theory wasn't in about, I'm lusting for blood and lusting for, but then again, I'm fighting, you know what I mean? So maybe I was lusting for it. I don't know. That's why, like, those are gray areas that I don't know enough about, because I'm an immoral man. So I never thought about stuff like that. But I guess when you really think about it, yeah, I guess I would be guilty. Like if that guy would have died from his injuries from that smoker fight, in theory, I guess I would have killed him. And, and even though it wasn't intentional in my conscious mind, but subconsciously, I guess I was lusting for fighting, and that's why I did it. But, but then again, like that, those are things like, without being a Christian or anything else, I have no idea. But in my gut, it's wrong. So even that example, I guess I'm wrong. All fighting is bad because it's just only in self-defense. Because in self-defense, you're not thinking and you're just defending yourself. And if somebody dies from that, then that's okay. But other than that, yeah, I mean, even for that, even if it's a child molester, whatever, you put him in a place like Kalinga, and hopefully, one, he'll never get out. But it's not a prison. He's then there with medical staff who know how to restrain people, and that's what they should do with them. That's part of the people who are mentally ill that don't know what's going on.
Right.
And, is that the way to, because like even though I'm an atheist, I have to believe that evil people, like, hey, I just don't believe people are bad. Like, I honestly don't believe people are evil, like just in nature. But if there is a devil, that has to be like, that's what demons look like. They're controlled by those demons. Because, like, oh God, I hate to think about things like this, but when I was working, so many patients used to call me like, oh, you got power, God, God, you know what I mean? But in a retarded way. And that's why, like, I don't know, like when I look back in my life, I'm thinking, I don't know, it's like it. And then with modern science and everything else, you kind of just have to believe like God is out there. And what if evil is real? Then, yeah, I don't know. I just don't believe in killing. I just don't. I mean, I just rationalize why we shouldn't kill. So to your honest question, what do we do with someone like that? You throw them in a place like Kalinga. I mean, my gut, like initially, like I would want to beat them and kill them, but yeah, that's wrong. You know what I mean? Because you can't do that. You have to, because they're not in control. If it's a real demon, then you lock them up in a place like that and get that demon. Not that I have done it, but a lot of people used to say the people I worked with were demonically possessed, and I actually made them better without the use of medication. So I don't know, man. Like, I think you could use physical punishment to change these people and just beat it out of them. So I don't know. I mean, without killing them, so I don't know. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like that crime bill is just, it's all hokum. It's just not real. There is no need for prisons. There just isn't, because people are going to do what they're going to do. And there is no, look, if somebody murders somebody or molests these kids, you can't take it back. You can't undo it. Killing this dude doesn't make it better.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. So,
okay.
No, but it's just a thing,
but I see what you're saying, especially when it comes to corrective action. With the prison system. I mean, I don't think there's a defined answer to it, and that's why we should dive into it a little bit.
But here's the thing, because I know a lot of people think like, oh, you're a big giant vagina. I said no. It comes from being violent myself. Like as a reformed violent person, violence is not killing is not the way. And that I know. But, can you beat somebody? Yeah, because that works. It really does. Like if you're going to change gangbangers, because somebody asked me that because, with the meeting with whatever the other day, they asked me that. It's like, what you do is you beat these dudes down and don't let them go. Because that's the problem. Most people beat you down and they think that beating is going to be the lesson that they need. It's like, no, you have to beat them down until you break them. The same way they would, with the CIA, because a lot of people in the CIA, they don't believe in enhanced interrogation or things like that, waterboarding, because it doesn't work, because they're trained out of that. It's like, no, it actually does work, but you have to know how to do it. A lot of people aren't trained in enhanced interrogation, so they don't know how to perform it. The thing is, you got to break somebody down mentally, and then you got to rebuild them up. Mm-hmm. And that's how it works. So you beat somebody down until you break them down. And once they get that fear of dying in them, then you build them back up. And you don't let them go, because if you let them go, then they're going to be able to take that much more the next time you try to break them down. And that's what our government doesn't understand when it comes to enhanced interrogations. That's what people don't understand about the streets, is how to break somebody down mentally. And like when I really think about it, and I think that's why so many Christians aren't Christians, because they've never been broken down. Because I've seen like these born again dudes like coming out of prison. I know they're real Christians, because why? They've been broken down in prison. And when they come out, they're not going back in. But the thing is, it's how they present their message is what always turned me off. Like those victory outreach guys, because that's what they're called, victory outreach. Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, whatever, dude. It's like, you guys are all wrong and ignorant.
Yeah.
But, like, again, that crime bill was passed and supported by every Christian I know. Every Christian I know supported that bill.
Right.
Because they were so, we got to stop the crime and stop the criminals and all this other stuff. But it's not about the crime. It's not about the criminals. It's about, as they say, how do you change the hearts of a criminal? How do you do it? Mm-hmm. And that's why, like, and the only reason why I keep harping about Jesus and the New Testament is because I know the answer is there. I just haven't read it and I haven't figured it out, because, dude, the Old Testament's interesting. And I really wanted to get into this with this crime bill, because Simone Sanders was literally talking crazy about this crime bill, saying this and saying, like, you guys need to go watch her interview. Everything she said was just a bunch of misinformation to get people into the belief that it was the necessary evil to handle all of the all the evil things that were happening.
Yeah.
And that kind of language is still being used to support the myth of global warming. And people go, what do you mean the myth of global warming? It's happening. Yeah, but it has nothing to do with CO2. Too much carbon dioxide. What is CO2, right? Carbon dioxide, right?
Yeah, it doesn't burn.
No, but think about it. I really want you to think about this. In CO2, in its real state, what do we call it?
In its real state?
Yeah. For Halloween, what do we use? Dry ice.
That's CO2?
Yeah, that's what it is.
I thought that was like liquid nitrogen or whatever, because of the fact that it's, I don't know. I'm not a chemist. So that's CO2? That's what dry ice is?
Yeah, hold on. I want to make sure, because now I'm thinking I can't be wrong. No, but yeah, CO2 at its pure form is literally dry ice. Because you know why I remember this? Because you guys remember that story about Dippin' Dots? You know what Dippin' Dots is? That ice cream? Okay, so Dippin' Dots is crazy because they use CO2. And this guy had a block of CO2 he was delivering because, CO2 in its natural state, it's super cold, which is why this whole thing about global warming, because I keep telling, remember, I think I said this before on the podcast, dude, if you guys understood anything about chemistry, you would know global warming is a myth the way they explain it. The world is getting hotter, but it has nothing to do with too much CO2 in the air. Mm-hmm. Because what is CO2 in its solid state? It is ice. That's why when you go on an airplane, it's always freezing cold. Regardless of the temperature in the desert, it's going to be cold as fuck when you get up there, right? Haven't you ever been on a plane? Guess what? It's still 120 in Sudan, but it's freezing cold up in the air where all the CO2 is at. Right. Why? Because CO2 is super, super cold. I mean, super cold, which is why it's such a small percentage of our atmosphere. Right. The bulk of our atmosphere is nitrogen, like by a lot.
We got we got to save it though for the next episode. We got to talk about the weather.
That's my point. So the use of language is very important.
Right.
Think about this, how we use language, like, because people don't really understand, like, if this whole global warming thing is true, then we would have an outbreak of cancer, because that's what would happen. Because there's something called bromide in water, and when the sun hits it, it turns into potassium bromide. But anyway, I don't want to get all technical, but it turns into this chemical that causes cancer in drinking water. And it's the same thing in the air. So when there is too much CO2, we would be really worried about cancer-causing bromide in the atmosphere. And nobody ever said, I've never heard anybody say that. Oh, yeah, I've heard of skin cancer from this type of radiation, but never from too much of a bastardization of bromide turning into something that's not carcinogenic to potassium bromide. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, so long story short, language, man, it's all about language, how we use our language. And what Simone Sanders, she was trying to control the language, control the narrative of how we see crime in this country, how we turn, because look, I've said it, you've said it, prison is an industry.
Yeah.
It really is. They want everybody to give up their rights. And that's why we tangent off into those vigilante groups and everything else. But it's true. They want us to not think like those vigilantes in Mexico. Mm-hmm. Because they want us to give up our gun rights. They want us to, think it's normal to pay child support.
Yeah.
And go to jail for that. How in the hell are we going to jail for missing a child support payment is beyond me, because it costs more money to put that guy in jail than the money he owes. Like if you're paying child support in Texas or whatever, I don't know all the states that put people in jail for missing child support, but for those states that do, that's a lot of money, to put some man in jail because you got to hire this guy, that guy, this guy. So the business of prison is real. All of these police officers who make all this money, and they have the right to kill you with very little education. Why is that possible? Because they controlled the language.
Right.
Why do we believe in global warming? Everybody says it. I don't care who you are, right or left. Mm-hmm. It's because they control the language. Like nobody ever used common sense that says, you know what? Isn't CO2 dry ice? Isn't that what that is? But nobody understands the language. They're just like, oh, with this, and if you look at light refraction, what does that have to do with dry ice? You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, because even at the dipping dot situation, and I think the reason why nobody knows about the dipping dot situation is because even though, okay, so the delivery guy had his mother in the back seat with the ice cream.
Yeah.
But, and, you know, obviously he closed the windows, kind of like a pet or a little baby. And the mother, when he came back, the mother was passed out. And they believe that she might have passed out from asphyxiation from the CO2.
Right.
But they couldn't prove it because when they tested the air, it wasn't enough to really cause asphyxiation. But they don't know. I mean, it's still, I mean, hell, who knows what she was doing? But yeah, carbon dioxide is not the same as carbon monoxide. See, because everybody confuses carbon monoxide,
which is methane, right?
Dioxide. What?
Is that methane or is that a different?
No, that's the exhaust. Like carbon monoxide could be found in your exhaust pipe. Like all that crap coming from your engine.
Yeah, and that stuff will kill you if you.
Yeah, exactly. So that lady could have passed out from carbon monoxide, but you know, if there would have been, but then I don't know. But they're trying to make it seem like maybe CO2 killed her. I mean, not killed her, made her pass out. But that's the point. My guess would be carbon monoxide, but they're trying to make CO2 this dangerous thing, but it's not. The trees need it to live. In order to create oxygen, they need tiny amounts of CO2 to make a boatload
of oxygen. Which is what we need to live.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, how is that even humanly possible? And then, you know, the only answer I have at this point in my life is, fuck, I'm tired of trying to study it. It's probably just God, you know, because that's the easiest answer. But it also makes the most sense because if God somehow, some way explained the inverse of Einstein's theory of relativity, which is proven, because that's the other thing too. And I told you how I thought I made up all of these things. Like, oh my God, I just unified the universe, you know, with all these things. But after reading the Bible, I'm like, oh man, it's already in here. So all of my discoveries and things like that, and even working out the math and just knowing that it's already been proven, it's in the Bible, kind of, you know, yeah, it's hard not to believe in God when everything just points to it. It's like, because it don't make no sense.
Yeah.
Everybody's saying how dangerous CO2 is, but I want to see the proof, even with the dipping dot situation.
I think that's what we'll have to dive in a future episode. We got to wrap that up because of the whole nother thing. But yeah, I mean, it's all the language, it's the manipulation of it. That's what people just need to really pay attention to, especially when it comes to facilitating independent thought, because taking news at face value, you're going to get the same result. You know, you're just going to get people in both circles manipulating you. And you're not able to really think about this, right? And that's also the thing, being able to bridge the gap between things that may not seem related, but they are. You know, the whole vigilante thing in Mexico ties into prison reform and crime laws. So, yeah, I'm going to end it there, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the American Maiden Page Show. We will continue this discussion, and we got to talk about climate change, so we'll dive into that in a future episode.
Yeah, no, and racism too. Well, like, we did not touch any of the racism or progressive ideology, but man, that's whole Safeway thing just sidelined.
Yeah, I know. We'll dive into it later this week. Take care, guys.